Restart is a new pilot project that is operating across 5 London boroughs, and it is trying to get in earlier intervention for families that are open to either early help or children's social care. So they're referred in, and we do one-to-one work with the person causing harm, as well as support to the non-abusive parent, and really work to try to prep and get ready for a longer-term domestic abuse perpetrator program. And then alongside the one-to-one work that we do, we've got different elements of training and support to try to create better systems change within children's social care, but also within housing. The one really unique and innovative aspect of Restart that's very different to what we've been doing before is looking at what a housing pathway could look like for the person causing harm. So rather than the survivor having to move or get to the point where they have to flee with their children, which obviously disrupts school and support, and there's lots of different reasons why one wouldn't want to move. We're working with families and offering kind of a creation of a housing pathway. So we have a dedicated accommodation support worker, and we work with the local councils, both around emergency accommodation to give some of that like space for action, breathing space, but then also with the local authority housing teams around actually what could that look like in the longer term, what is someone entitled to, getting advice, getting support, and then trying to think really creatively about what we could do in order to kind of keep the survivor safe at home if that's what they wish to do. Restart aims to be a systems change model. So although we're working one-to-one with families, the aim is also around upskilling and changing the narrative within housing services and within children's social care services, and what can we be seeing differently, and how are we holding parents to account and not just the mother to account. Our expectation is that this is a multi-agency response to a family because there's multiple people involved, there's multiple priorities, there's multiple needs, there's multiple complexities, and actually no one service can address it. So a lot of what we're doing is trying to work on breaking down, their walls of denial, minimization, actually recognizing the early kind of coercive controlling behaviors that are starting to manifest. It's oftentimes there's been no physical abuse, for example, or there's been no kind of big police call out. There's something that's going on, and that's why obviously there's some agencies' involvement. So I think one of the biggest differences that we see is just seeing that breakdown start to happen and seeing them start to take accountability. There's a recent case that was just in the back of my mind that I think is a really good example of what Restart is trying, like who we're trying to get and what we're trying to see. So the first session was had with him, and it was really, really interesting. It was a really long, probably longer than we would normally do, but like a 3-hour first session. And by the end of it, actually, he was starting to name, yeah, I can see how when I do that, that could make her afraid. Oh, I can see how when I do that, it's not how I want my child to act when they grow up and get into a relationship. And even in that first initial period, it went from someone who you were nervous about even using the words domestic abuse to someone that's starting to say, oh yeah, I can see how my behavior would make my partner afraid. And that one as well, right after that session, she said, actually, I'd like some breathing space. And he agreed to move out of the family home for 2 weeks and use that hotel accommodation. So I feel like that's like a perfect example of like what we're trying to do and the kind of incremental small change that we want to see. And obviously at the end of it, we want to hopefully have survivors, including children, feel safer and feel like they had that space during that time and equipped to know what they want to do next, whatever that may be.